So I saw an interview with Derek Chisora, and I think there is some interesting observations there. So let's try and bring some understanding and context. So we're going to look at the statements and bring our own observations. So the first statement was at the fitness test walkaway. And here, Derek Chisora was offered, according to him, the vacant WBA shot after Yoka had pulled out. And according to Derek Chisora, he took a fitness test, he failed it, and then he thought to himself, what am I doing this for? So it's important to understand the context here, that this was offered on very short notice. And it's also important to realize, especially for young fighters, why you should always be ready, because you never know when that opportunity is going to come. You never know when that door is going to open. And I look at this situation and I think to myself, this may have actually been a smart decision by Derek Chisora, because as an older fighter, him going in to a title shot without the appropriate preparation could have been very detrimental for his career, and it would have been hard for him to have come back had he lost, and lost really badly. And also it's important to remember this context. And the context is this: how important are belts in today's climate? And in today's climate, Usyk has just vacated the belt. So how much economic power do belts really have today? And then the next statement, and this is where we get into the Chisora-Usyk situation. Chisora says that Usyk ignored his plea to keep the IBF belt. So basically, Derek Chisora was pleading with Usyk to keep the IBF belt. And he vacated, he being Usyk, because according to him, and many people would agree with this, Usyk now knows that he's not the same fighter. I'm not sure why this would make Chisora angry. And part of me thinks, does Chisora want that rematch with Usyk? Now, it's important to understand the following. Derek Chisora had a sensational performance against Usyk. He did very, very well. And does he feel that Usyk's decision, which went against Derek Chisora's advice, does he feel that that compromises the potential rematch? Or does he feel that by doing this, it's potentially messing with his money, because a rematch would leave a lot of money on the table and it would be economically very lucrative for Derek Chisora? And obviously this is speculation. Or is it simply an ego thing? You ask someone to do something, you feel like you have a certain relationship, and when they go against it, you feel like it's personal, when it may not be personal. And of course, there is the possibility that Derek Chisora is simply trolling, because he does like to say some very controversial things, and sometimes it appears that he does it for the sake of it. I think in England or in Britain, we call this banter, or it falls under the banter umbrella. Or is he trying to generate some type of beef with Usyk to try and market a potential rematch? Because again, there'll be a lot of money on the table. And we'll come back to Usyk in a bit. Now, the next statement, Chisora says that the belts, they mean nothing compared to hearing his children. There's a few things to say here. Number one, you could make an argument that after Usyk's decision to vacate the belts, you could ask the question, have the belts, they haven't lost credibility, but have they lost the same level of credibility, or do they have the same authority that they once had? Other fighters, I believe, like Shakur Stevenson, have also had issues with certain institutions, certain belt institutions. So are we seeing the declining power of belts? So that's the first part, and only you can decide whether you think that premise is true. But the second part, about his children, I think it's important to recognize that it's all about family. Family are so important, and it's a blessing to have children, and one should cherish those moments. And I guess it's that whole thing about having your priorities straight. So I think it's great that he has that perspective, that he's not only thinking about his boxing career, he's thinking about his family, because that's what's most important. So then the next statement is about Moses Itauma and Daniel Dubois, and Chisora believes that Daniel Dubois and Moses, I think he uses the term killers, they're the only killers left in the heavyweight division. Now, when you look at Itauma and when you look at Daniel Dubois, what do you have? You have two very dangerous fighters, two very dangerous boxers. Speed, power, but more importantly, there's education behind the speed and behind the power. And I think there's something that we need to consider here, and this is something that I was thinking the other day. The British heavyweight division is particularly strong, and I think that we should acknowledge that because it's such a beautiful thing. You know, we have Itauma, who is coming up. He's having an exponential rise. We have Daniel Dubois, who's already a two-time heavyweight champion. We have Anthony Joshua, who's a former two-time heavyweight champion. We have Tyson Fury, which is a former two-time heavyweight champion. The British boxing scene has such a tremendous impact on boxing globally. And for me, I think that's a beautiful thing. So the next statement is that Chisora calls Fabio Wardley a paper champion and predicts his rematch defeat will come even earlier. So he's talking about the rematch with Daniel Dubois. The first thing is, what is a paper champion? What is a paper champion? And is Wardley a paper champion? My understanding, a paper champion is a weaker champion. But when we say weaker, what do we mean by weaker? Is a paper champion someone who doesn't deserve to be the champion? So I'm not sure what his direct meaning of paper champion is. But what I can say is that from my perspective as an outsider looking in, is that Fabio is a warrior, the same way Derek Chisora is a warrior. And Fabio has some technical limitations, but he's a courageous and brave boxer who I think takes his craft very seriously. And his win over Joseph Parker was legit. Joseph Parker is a former heavyweight champion. Now, is there context to that performance? Did Joseph Parker not take the assignment as seriously as he should have, or did he have the wrong tactics? Maybe. But we still have to give credit where credit is due. And let's be honest, when he lost to Daniel Dubois, it was a very courageous performance by him. And it was a performance that it was brutal, but it was fan friendly. And I feel like the boxing fans, they want to see Fabio Wardley fight. So I'm not sure if I would make the association of paper champion with Fabio Wardley. But again, I'm not sure what Derek Chisora means when he uses the term paper champion. And then the next statement is about Derek Chisora dismissing Ajit Kabayel. He argues that the added weight has destroyed the footwork that once made him dangerous. Now, again, it's important to remember the context. They have fought before. And it's an interesting insight about added weight, because added weight has pros and it has cons. The pros is that you can be stronger in the clinch, you'll punch harder, and you'll have better strength, and maybe you could absorb punches better. But the added weight can also affect footwork, and if footwork is an essential part of your game, then that can be a telling factor. I remember when Dillian Whyte, I think he was under Jonathan Banks. I remember when Dillian Whyte was a lighter fighter. This is when he fought Anthony Joshua. And I thought, in my opinion, that when Dillian Whyte was lighter, he was a better fighter. That's just my opinion. So I definitely think Derek Chisora is making an interesting point with regards to the weight factor. And then Derek Chisora makes a prediction over Itauma, over Daniel Dubois, and he predicts that Itauma will win, and he feels that his southpaw stance will give him a tactical advantage. Now, I like Daniel Dubois. He had a sensational performance against Wardley. He really did. It was an educated performance. It was a brutal performance. Great feet, great jab, great counterpunching. He showed a lot of boxing education. But I do feel that he struggles with southpaws, and I think there's references to that, particularly the two Usyk fights. And if you do not fight southpaws effectively, or you struggle with southpaws, you are going to have a big problem on your hands when you fight Moses Itauma. And then the final statement is that Chisora feels that a fully focused Usyk will stop Rico inside of 6 rounds, suggesting that the first fight exposed poor preparation rather than weakness. Now, I think a lot of us, and when I say a lot of us, I think a lot of us within the boxing community may agree with this notion. But let's give credit where credit's due. Rico had a special performance, head movement, effective feints, great footwork, showed high boxing IQ. Also, let's give Peter Fury some credit because he was a big part of that. And of course, there was the element of surprise. Now, the big thing, if there is a rematch, you take away the element of surprise, and now Usyk knows what he's up against. So I would expect that if there was a rematch, that Usyk would have a dominant performance. However, the variable here is that there will be a lot of pressure on Usyk to perform. So this is my final statement. Think of this. Derek Chisora's comments are really about perspective because he understands that belts can create opportunities, but preparation determines whether a fighter can take them. He questions champions, studies technical weaknesses, and respects genuine danger in fighters like Itauma-over-Dubois. Yet his most important point goes beyond boxing. Titles eventually lose their meaning, while family remains. Chisora, he may be provocative, emotional, and occasionally trolling, but his observations, they reveal a veteran who now judges boxing through experience, timing, and legacy. So that's the end of the video. Now I'm trying to build a digital boxing community, and that means I'm interested in your thoughts, I'm interested in your perspectives, and I'm interested in your observations. Now, if you want to support the channel, press like, hype, and subscribe. And if you want to watch more content like this, then simply click here or click here. As always, thanks for your time. It is much appreciated.